Kabul is now one of the most devastated cities on earth. There used to be 2 universities and 4 schools along here. All this damage has happened since the Mujahideen took over the city from the communists in 1992. That was when the West finally lost interest in Afghanistan. The factions and their outside backers were left alone to fight it out. The fighting may be over in this part of town, but the danger remains. Each day at this time, UN-trained mine clearance teams work painstakingly in the ruins, dealing with the hundreds of thousands of anti-personnel mines planted by the factions. It's the biggest concentration of them anywhere. They found a mine buried under a couple of inches of soil. One of the team gets a plastic explosive charge to blow it up. It may not seem like much of an explosion, but it's enough to wreck a life utterly. A 17-year-old girl has just been brought in after treading on a mine. Both her legs have been blown off. God forgive me, she's screaming, as though she's the one to blame, not the men who planted the mine. Her cousin, who's not badly hurt, was with her when it went off. They were out looking for firewood near their house. They thought the area was safe. The girl's aunt arrives. She's been looking after her since her father died, killed in the war against the Russians. No one's told her the extent of the injuries.
She has nothing. She's lost her feet, but she's not dead. That's all you can say. She's got no one. She's an orphan.
For Zabibi, at the age of 17, her injuries are a catastrophe. She'll never find a husband now. But for the workers at the hospital and for the International Red Cross, which runs it, her injuries are nothing out of the ordinary. They get cases like this every day.
Afghanistan is one of these countries where there's the most mines remaining and more put on every day. And together with the difficult economical situation for the people are so desperate in finding firewood and finding whatever they can to make a living. They cannot really be prevented of going to the areas, even if it's declared as being mines, but they have no choice. And that's why there's so many mine injuries every day.
We made our way gingerly through the minefield around Zabibi's village to see where she'd been blown up. Thousands of mines were placed here during the fighting a couple of years ago. We reached the riverbank where the accident had happened. Zabibi had wandered away from the village at the time, trying to find firewood.
Another girl is here.
On the riverbank, we found the site of the explosion. A small bundle of twigs she'd been collecting lay at the water's edge. The mine clearance teams find it intensely frustrating that people pay so little heed to their warnings. Not far from the place where Zabibi lost her legs, an old man is hunting duck with a couple of decoys. In spite of the dangers, people have to have food and they have to have firewood.
These local people knows better than us, better than anybody. Just their houses is here. There are many accidents. There was an accident here, I believe, 1, yeah, and 2 before. This man knows this area is mine.
Sometime later, the old man has given up trying to catch ducks and he's wandering calmly back through the minefield. All this land belongs to me, he says, but for 3 solid years I haven't been able to grow anything on it. It gets so that you don't want to live. I'd rather die. Of course, we understand the dangers, but what can you do? He wanders off across the minefield, back to the village where he and Zabibi, the orphan girl who's lost her legs, both live. Everywhere around Kabul, life is a battlefield, and each day produces its casualties. Back in the city, the strong man in the Kabul government is attending afternoon prayers. Ahmed Shah Massoud helped to liberate Kabul from the communists. Now he commands the army which defends it. Massoud has fought hard to keep Afghanistan independent, but in order to resist pressure from Pakistan, he's had to accept help from Pakistan's rivals, India, Iran and Russia. He maintains that the Taliban forces besieging Kabul are paid and encouraged by the Pakistanis.
Of course, it's hard to continue with this situation. The government will have to do something to stop rocket attacks on Kabul, but we still have to try and wait to see what can come of any negotiations with the opposition forces.
But surely that's the argument of a weak government. Can you really get rid of the Taliban forces?
We're under constant pressure from our armed forces to go on the offensive and push the Taliban back. But we still have to wait and see if negotiations can work.
There's not much sign at present that the Taliban will negotiate with the government, though in Afghanistan any sudden about-face in policy is always possible. We decided to cross the front line and see the Taliban forces for ourselves. There's one road out of the city which is usually left open. We hired a local taxi to take us across. It was an eerie experience. A camel train making the crossing had been attacked not long before we passed. So now we're actually in no man's land. We've left the last government post behind us down there, and the Taliban forces lie ahead of us. This part of the front is pretty quiet, though if we were to stop or to break down on this section of the road, it's likely that the government forces and the Taliban forces would open fire on us. But we got across without real difficulty. And on the other side, we made our first contact with the Taliban, the besieging army, which has caused such casualties in Kabul. They didn't look particularly impressive.